Hello, hello. Welcome to Accio Politics. What is Accio Politics, you may ask? It is a Harry Potter podcast. We are rereading the series with the lens of politics and, talking about everything in between. Just not politics, but mainly politics. I am Adri, one of your hosts and a recovering English major who has realized this about herself. There is nothing that feels better than to be proven right, especially when a lot of people questioned you. Love it. It's my favorite jam.
That is a good feel. I'm Helene, your co-host, producer, and at the moment, currently overworked person. But honestly, for once, I'm not absolutely hating it. Liking what you do, it definitely makes a difference, and getting paid for your extra work also definitely makes a difference.
Who knew?
I know.
Who knew that actually liking what you did and being fairly compensated for any time over 8 hours is something that would make you hate work less? Huh.
I know. It's crazy concept.
I feel like you're delivering a breakthrough tonight on par with my $1 million ideas from last episode.
Oh, yeah. Business owners, if you're listening, take note. Paying.
Helene, we're business owners.
It's true.
We are business owners.
Oh, well, I was going to say, business owners take note. We're paying your employees a fair wage is going to, increase their productivity. But then, you saying that we're business owners, we don't get paid to do this podcast.
Well, my bank account pays for the privilege of us doing the podcast, and we get reimbursed by patrons up to a degree. But we're still, none
of the money goes to us.
I wish.
We do it for the love.
We do it for the love, for the craft, for the connection, for the community. Honestly, that's what we do it for. And also, it's nice to, touch base every week with you, Helene. It's the bonus.
Of course. Yes. Gotta love talking about Harry Potter through this lens. It's a lot of fun.
But before we get into that, I feel like I should get this out of the way so that we can, go into Harry Potter. But, I'm obsessed. I know I don't care about the Olympics. Sorry, guys. I have controversial opinions about this. But I was obsessed with the France skateboarding uniform for that one woman who was wearing it from Nike. Beautiful. Which it was like a red jumpsuit, like a utility suit. And I can't afford the $150 jumpsuit. This podcast doesn't pay me. But I bought myself a Dickies jumpsuit, which was like $45 to $49, somewhere around that midpoint. And it is red. I am wearing it tonight, Helene. I look pretty good.
Sweet. Yeah.
I am obsessed with these jumpsuits. I even told Seth, I was like, hey, so they have them in olive green and black and navy blue. And you know what? I feel like this is an acceptable work from home uniform.
Heck yeah.
I also want to get a patch that says Adri, like I'm a mechanic or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would definitely make you look like a mechanic if you did that.
Yes, I have fully come full circle with 15-year-old Adri, who definitely wore Dickies jeans, like punk rock, Avril Lavigne era Adri.
Yeah,
I've come full circle.
At my old job where we did custom apparel, we offered Dickies as a brand that people could put their logos on, and 100% of the time only mechanics or construction workers and mechanics ever bought Dickies brand anything.
Honestly, fine, not a mechanic, not a construction worker, but this Dickies jumpsuit for women, super comfortable, and also I looked much thinner than in anything else I've ever worn.
Oh, well,
so,
that's awesome. Make you feel good about yourself. If you
yeah.
tie yourself work to your weight, which
Um,
many people
well,
do.
which I fully do, even though I've tried to deprogram myself from this.
It's hard not to. When you find a pair of clothes, like a piece of clothing that makes you just feel really like you're fitting into society's version of beauty for a little bit more than normal, like it's nice. I mean, we like it. It might be problematic. It might be the patriarchy that's telling us that we should want to look this way, but who cares if it makes you feel good about yourself? Embrace it.
I mean, who knew that my look at 35 years old would be, I just want to look like a lady mechanic,
Well, you know who doesn't look like a lady mechanic? Dumbledore in this chapter.
I don't know. Okay.
I thought that was the perfectly crafted segue into Harry Potter. I don't know about you, but
Wow. I was not laughing because it was bad, listeners. I'm just so blown away.
yes. Well, in case you forgot, we are going to be talking about Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Chapter 3, Will and Won't. And this is the one where Dumbledore arrives at Privet Drive to pick up Harry for their trip to the Burrow and ends up having a little chat with the Dursleys.
A little tete-a-tete.
Yeah, just a little, chitty chat with the Dursleys.
He even gives them refreshments in their own home.
I mean, we'll get my chocolate has a lot to do with that moment.
I just thought that was very charming, yet pushing boundaries in the way that only Dumbledore can.
Yeah, I mean, he brought Madame Rosmerta's mead to the Dursleys so that he could serve it. It's so extra. I love it.
I mean, we stan an extra character here. Because,
yes.
I mean, as you may have heard, I, myself, am just a tiny bit extra.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But before we get into, like, our Hogwarts Debate Club, quick thing on Potter Watch. Where we talk about, like, news or whatever's. Mask mandates are back on, even for vaccinated people. But please, keep being vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated right now and you don't have a medical condition precluding you from it, why?
I mean, great question. Just to clarify, can you confirm this for me, Adri? The mask mandates are CDC recommended, but have not been like pushed into legislation across
they
all
have
states
not.
yet?
It's you are correct. As of this moment, it's only the CDC guidance that people who are vaccinated and unvaccinated wear masks indoors in public places. Now, this has been told to about 63% of counties in the United States, because if your county's positivity rate is 17% or above, then your county, is kind of like at risk.
It's targeting hotspots. It makes it a little bit more convoluted, and the less straightforward it is, I feel like the less followed the guidelines will be, unfortunately, because there's just all these nuances and people, for some reason, don't have the capacity in their brains for nuance. And they're just like, well, either it's required or it's not. But yeah, I mean, definitely listen to the CDC, wear your mask indoors, whether or not you're vaccinated. Honestly, we wore a mask for 18 months. We can freaking do it again. Just do it, because people are still dying. And yeah, the people who are dying are mostly people who are choosing not to get vaccinated because of their political beliefs, which, I mean, there's problems in that. But just try to remember that there are people out there who want desperately to be vaccinated, believe COVID is a real thing, and are being killed because they cannot be vaccinated for one reason or another, whether it's immunosuppressant disorders or, their age or whatever it is. And these people need protection. And the only way that we're going to be able to protect them from the people who don't care about the lives of these humans is by being thoughtful and wearing our masks when we can.
Well, and to add into that, I believe I read studies showing pretty conclusively that if you're vaccinated, you could still get COVID, but obviously not as badly as, it'll be like a super mild case in comparison,
Right.
which means you'll stay out of the hospital. But the people getting infected who are vaccinated, they're getting infected by people who aren't vaccinated. The people vaccinated who get COVID, a case of COVID, do not transmit it forward, which is yet another argument for vaccination. Like, it ends with you, and also you don't have to go to the hospital.
I mean, I see nothing but upsides here, but of course, the people who are not partaking are the ones that legitimately don't believe that COVID is real or threat. Just look at the 600,000 plus lives that we've lost since March of 2020.
Meanwhile, we have politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene being like, definitely vaccinated, but won't admit to it so she won't lose constituents. And she's like, that is a violation of my HIPAA rights. No, bitch, it ain't.
And also, on the same page, she's also saying that doing these mask mandates or requiring vaccinations in certain restaurants and things like that is segregation. She's drawing a false. She literally used that word. She's drawing false equivalencies of requiring vaccinations to save lives, and false equivalent to literal segregation of Black people. Like it's awful.
As if, I'm not laughing because it's great. I'm laughing because it's awful. Like, as if, like, there weren't any difference between not choosing the color of your skin or your genetics, and, like, choosing or not choosing to get a vaccination. Come on, man.
Yeah. One is a choice, one isn't. Pretty obvious. It's a false equivalency. I mean, I'm not surprised. Honestly, this comes from her because she did the same exact thing by...
isn't she the space lacer?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. She made an equivalency to the Holocaust earlier this year with vaccinations. It's escaping my mind exactly. I think it was something with like having to wear a mask only if you're vaccinated, which was what it used to be. Was like it was like when Hitler made the Jews wear like the Star of David in Germany before he sent them to let people know that they were Jewish. She it made an equivalency to that too. So she is just really tone deaf and awful, and don't be like her, please.
A real gem. Not really. Well, going from a terrible person to something hopefully more uplifting, let's talk about the politics that we saw in this chapter. So, Helene, you're reading chapter 3, Will and Won't, and you're going through the chapter. What did you think was like the main politic, and did it come out right at you, or did you have to think about it?
This one was hard for me, actually, because I don't know, this wasn't a really, I wouldn't say a particularly political chapter. It was just kind of one of those like nicer, easier chapters to read. But one did come out. It was probably the first one that I thought of, and I was like, I don't know if I want to go with this one, so I'll see if I can think of anything else, but nothing else really stuck. So I'm not like super passionate about the one that I chose, but I think it fits. It's such a ringing endorsement of my own politic.
Wow, like I'm pumped.
I know.
Pumped.
I decided to go with advocacy for this chapter.
Okay.
Which the general definition of advocacy, just like the word itself, is public support for or recommendation of a particular cause or policy. In this case, however, with this chapter, I think the definition specifically for individual advocacy, because there's a different definition for that, is a little bit more pertinent. And that definition is supporting someone when they need help or trying to find a solution when someone has a problem.
Okay.
So like advocating for someone, obviously. Like people know context, people know what advocacy is in general. And the main reason this one stood out to me was because we see Dumbledore serving as an advocate for Harry and his future and well-being when confronting the Dursleys. But the reason I wasn't like so super excited about that is because like this is probably the very first time we see him doing it in terms of the Dursleys. And so like, yeah, that makes this chapter unique in the fact that advocacy shows up in this way, because Dumbledore has never advocated for Harry on behalf of the Dursleys, or advocated on behalf of Harry to the Dursleys before. But it is a little problematic because he really should have done this a long time ago.
I know. It makes us sad that, you know, to see that moment that we maybe should have seen, I don't know, when Harry got the letters.
Yeah. But I'll dig a little deeper into that when we get to our Dementors and Chocolate, because it is something that really bothered me when reading this chapter. But I'll save it for that section. But in general, we do see Dumbledore advocating for Harry in a lot of different ways in this chapter. And at least in this moment, I think it's nice to see it.
Oh, I agree. Well, my politic is different. I mean, different, obviously, than yours.
Yeah.
I had a tough time coming up with politics for this chapter because the chapter begins with basically snippets from the Daily Prophet. That is a good chunk of the chapter. Just news stories after news stories that get...
Yeah, and they get like cut off too.
Cut off, yeah. And it's like, if you want to read more, go to page such and such. And I'm like, narrator, could you go to page such and such?
Yeah, I was like, I would like to read more, but you don't let me, so...
Unfair. That is a paywall, and that is a hate crime.
It is a paywall. That's good comparison.
Seriously, like paywalls. J.K. Rowling, she invented them, you know? Anyway.
Not a great legacy to have.
Oh, like her legacy is not already tainted.
J.K. Rowling, big creator of paywalls. Anyway.
Transphobic author creates paywalls. I don't know.
If you want to read more, turn to page.
If you want to read more, become a patron at patreon.com/aciopolitics.
Oh, we have paywalls too. Oh my gosh. They're everywhere.
We are a paywall too. Yeah, they're everywhere. It's just a fact of life at this point.
But your politic isn't paywalls though. So what's your politic?
No. Sorry. I just got sidetracked with paywalls and like my own brilliance, obviously. And I say that sarcastically. So first I was like, oh, this is definitely like the Daily Prophet changing their stance and kind of like being like, if you or a loved one think that you're going to be under attack by these people called Death Eaters, contact your local Auror office or do this. Like, it's kind of like precautionary measures of like disaster emergency preparedness. And I was like, oh, this is like the ministry working through the Daily Prophet. But then I was like, wait, no. Then the rest of the chapter happened and I was like, damn it, that has nothing to do with what's happening here. Okay. So I kept thinking, I was like, oh, this chapter is about legacy, because even in the Daily Prophet, like you could see Rufus Scrimgeour cementing his legacy through the Daily Prophet. Like Dumbledore is kind of preoccupied with his legacy at this point, so he goes and gets Harry and like gives like a talking to the Dursleys about their treatment of Harry. And he's like, oh my God, you've neglected Harry and overindulged this kid, and I don't know which one is worse. And Sirius leaves Harry all of his, possessions, which is called a legacy by Dumbledore in this chapter. So, like the idea of being preoccupied on how you're going to be viewed later, right? After maybe you are no longer there, or 10 years into the future, and how you're going to impact someone's life or your place in history. So that's where my mind went.
I right before we started recording, I took a look and saw your politic for the first time, and I was looking at it, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, I like hers more.
That often does not happen.
No, I mean, not that yours aren't ever good, but I'm usually pretty, like, by the time I've read the chapter and gotten through my notes, and like thought about it, because I usually give it quite a bit of thought, obviously, because I care. But by the time I've gotten to that point, I'm usually pretty confident in the politic that I chose. I'm like, oh yeah, I like this. I think this is good. And this time it just wasn't there for me. I was just kind of like, well, I mean, I guess this one. And then I saw yours.
The straws. I'm grasping at them.
Yeah. And then I saw yours and I was like, oh, I like that one a lot more. I like that one. Makes more sense. So as our listeners know, though, I like to do a poll on Twitter. To have people to have our listeners vote which politic they liked best. And I don't even know if I'll do one this week because I wouldn't even vote for my own, but maybe I will just to see.
I'll vote for you.
Maybe I'll do it just to see if people, or think I'm wrong and actually do like the politic of advocacy. I don't know, but it did make me think, because I did post yesterday a poll about our last episode, intent and espionage, and I just looked and it is split 50-50.
Dead heat.
Right in half. So love to see it.
Well, I might do some voting fraud and vote for my own politics. Just kidding.
No. I always see it come up on my personal page and I'm always like, don't vote. Don't tip the scale.
Don't do it, Helene. I feel that. Well, if it makes you feel better, you stole my quote, so I had to find another one.
Oh, okay, good. I mean, I'm not surprised, honestly, though, because this quote,
it's the most iconic quote of all time.
I read this quote and I was like, I don't care what my politic ends up being, I have to use this quote because I love this quote.
Well, same.
Yes.
I was just like, oh. Like, this quote is everything. Get it tattooed on my body.
Yes. And this is not even the most memorable quote from this chapter. The most memorable quote from this chapter is let's step into the night and pursue that flighty temptress adventure.
Oh my God, yes. I
forgot that he said that in this chapter.
Me too. I was like, Dumbledore, you bitch.
Yeah,
how dare you?
Whenever I see that quote out of context, I'm always like, that's such a weird quote. I don't like that quote. But then I was reading the chapter and I got to, it's the last line of the chapter, and I got to it and I was like, dang, I actually really like this quote.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm like, Dumbledore, you whimsical bitch. I love you. Yes. God, he is so perfect in that moment.
Yes, but while that quote is very memorable and very, very
let's get to your quote. I can't wait.
My personal favorite quote, though, from the chapter, and I guess yours, which we have determined,
yes,
is, you did not do as I asked. You have never treated Harry as a son. He has known nothing but neglect and often cruelty at your hands. The best that can be said is that he has at least escaped the appalling damage you've inflicted upon the unfortunate boy sitting between you. Oof. And then
Burn.
The Dursleys are all the Dursleys, they don't even what annoys me is the Dursleys don't even listen to the first half of that quote. They just then they fixate on what do you mean the damage to Dutters? What are you talking about? We love our Dutters. We haven't done anything to him. And it's he's literally sitting there 350 pounds. You have spoiled and just abuse the crap out of him in not so obvious ways.
Well, I think the entire, well, this is just me, right? Like the reason I think Dudley is, abused, or in a, in a roundabout way, like you said, isn't necessarily tied to his weight. For me, it's more tied to the selfish person that they have
It's
allowed him to become.
Yeah, so I pointed out the weight because that's like the physical thing that we can point to. The abuse, I think, is overindulgence. Like they have taught him and like allowed him to indulge in literally anything. They have not set any boundaries. They have not told him what is right and what's wrong. They just tell him anything that you do is perfect and good and you should do it. And that in itself is setting himself up for failure.
Well, he has the experience of a mediocre white man, right? Like, everything you do is great. You can take whatever you want without asking for like permission. The world is your oyster, and you just get to boss everyone around.
Yes, and I mean, they're instilling this sense of entitlement and selfishness and awful habits from the start of his life.
Honestly, the worst part of it all is the lack of emotional intelligence that they have they have perpetuated in Dudley, and made this person to be selfish and to continue carrying on the legacy of white supremacy and patriarchy.
Yeah, I mean, the abuse is just, it reaches to so many different areas.
I chose the moment when Dumbledore is talking to Harry about his inheritance from Sirius. This is, in the main, fairly straightforward, Dumbledore went on. You add a reasonable amount of gold to your account at Gringotts, and you inherit all of Sirius's personal possessions. The slightly problematic part of the legacy... His godfather's dead? Said Uncle Vernon loudly from the sofa. Dumbledore and Harry both turned to look at him. The glass of mead was now knocking quite insistently on the side of Vernon's head. He attempted to beat it away. He's dead? His godfather? Yes, said Dumbledore. He did not ask Harry why he had not confided in the Dursleys. Our problem, he continued to Harry, as if there had been no interruption, is that Sirius also left you number 12 Grimmauld Place.
He left him a house?
I know. He was so upset. So within this one, I mean, so Harry has lost Sirius, but Sirius left him, like, in his will, like all these things, which is almost Sirius's way of leaving a legacy for Harry. Because Sirius did not have children of his own, right? So like in bequeathing his possessions to Harry, he is saying, you are as good as my son, you're as good as my family, and who I was now belongs to you.
Yeah, I mean, he left everything that he had in this world to Harry. He left his legacy, everything that was left with Sirius's print on it in any form, he left to Harry. So yeah, I would agree.
And not only did he leave them all the physical things, which are, tangential and important, but he also had some time that he spent with Harry that Harry will carry forever and shapes who he will become. So in that way,
exactly.
Also Sirius's legacy is very tangible in Harry's life.
Totally, 100% agree. Yeah.
So since we're talking about characters, for you, who was the character who was like, this is the character who represents politics of advocacy?
I mean, in this chapter, it has to be Dumbledore. No one else really advocates for anyone else in this chapter. I mean, I guess maybe the Dursleys advocate for Dudley in a weird way, and maybe Harry advocates for Sirius, I guess. To like...
Yeah, like Bellatrix isn't getting this shit.
Yeah. Just to like make sure that his memory is honored and that like everything goes to what like everything happens the way the series would want it to happen after his death. But I picked Dumbledore just mainly because that quote I read, that was his strongest point of advocating for Harry throughout the series, I think, honestly.
Oh, for sure. Which, we'll get into that later.
Yeah. What about you?
So I have Harry down as a character here, but because like for me, he is in this moment trying to discover his legacy, and he's been at the mercy of other people's choices. Like if the Dursleys hadn't taken him in, like who knows what would have happened.
Right.
If like Sirius hadn't left him number 12 Grimmauld Place, what would have happened to Creature? Like so much is tied on other people's decisions about Harry's life.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did want to mention is that even number 12 Grimmauld Place has a history of legacy itself, because there was a question in this chapter whether or not Sirius could leave his house, his family home, to a non-black family member.
Yeah.
And that was, it's part of that legacy of like only purebloods can, be here, and it has to be a male with a last name Black.
Yeah.
So, in a very real way, legacies just kind of make a guest appearance everywhere in this chapter.
Yeah, no, I mean that's why honestly your chapter is so much better of a pick, or your politic is so much better of a pick than mine because of that.
Well, so for the rest of the book, from what you remember of the rest of the book and what we've read so far, how do you see advocacy like weaving in and out?
Let's see what I would say mainly, surprisingly, Dumbledore, but not advocating for Harry as much throughout the book, but Dumbledore advocating for Snape, not only in this book but also the entire series as well. Basically, like he is publicly supporting Snape, saying that Snape is a good guy, that he trusts him this entire time, when everyone who is not exactly privy to their secret plans has no reason to trust Snape except for Dumbledore's word. So I think that especially like up until the end, up until Dumbledore is murdered, he's advocating for Snape.
That's nice. Yeah, I guess. So, like when I was thinking about the politics of legacy through Half-Blood Prince, I was thinking about how, in hindsight, it is very clear to me that Dumbledore is super preoccupied with his own legacy and the state of the wizarding world, and if that's going to be put on his shoulders or not.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also worried about the legacy he's leaving Harry to vanquish Voldemort eventually, which is why he starts to teach Harry himself in this book.
Yeah. This book is a lot of Dumbledore's legacy, just because he knows that he's going to die too. So he's like kind of stamping in his legacy as much as he can, because he's going to be gone at the end of the book, and he knows it.
He knows.
He knows everything.
Knows. Well, he knows everything except, how to connect with people, I guess.
He has some trouble in the interpersonal stuff. That's true.
Oh, no. I'm just saying as a person who also has that problem.
Yeah. But like, I mean, to counter that though, I just think that he shows his love in not so obvious ways. And this chapter is a great example of that. Like, I read this chapter and I see love for Harry just like radiating out of Dumbledore, and like out of every pore. And it's so subtle, and he's not sitting there yelling, "I love you, Harry. You are so important to me." Like physically, he's not saying those things. But to me, everything he does in this chapter screams that between the lines.
Yeah. Well, I think that we've kind of like discussed this chapter to death in terms of the deep dive. It's time for the Dementors and chocolate. So, as a recap, Dementors are what we didn't like about the chapter, and we wish we could, Patronus away. And the chocolate is, all the stuff that makes us feel happy inside.
Yes.
What was your Dementor?
Oh. We both want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know.
I can go
what your
first.
Dementor
That's
was.
fine. So mine, I did allude to it earlier, but as much as I love this chapter, which I really do, as a whole, I love this chapter, I couldn't help but think about how Dumbledore's advocacy for Harry in this chapter might have just all been a little, like, too little too late, unfortunately, because, I mean, as you guys know, I love Dumbledore so much. He's one of my favorite characters, and I will make a lot of excuses for him, but this talk that he had with the Dursleys, honestly, needed to happen back in the first book. It needed to happen as soon as he was made privy to the fact that they were abusing Harry. And I just can't help but think that if he had that conversation right at the beginning and intimidated them a little bit like he did in this chapter, that he could possibly maybe have potentially spared Harry years of emotional and physical abuse. So
I don't know. Just didn't do it.
Yeah, just knowing that, like, I mean, your favorite's problematic, right? That's a thing. Like, I love Dumbledore, but he's problematic, and this is just one of those things where I have to admit that while I love what he does in this chapter, I wish he would have done it, 6 years ago. Or actually, if he would have done it, 15 years ago. Like, the minute he found out that the Dursleys weren't treating Harry right, whenever that was.
Well, mine was the reference to Vernon Dursley's piggy eyes. Listen, guys, there are better ways to talk about people's eyes than comparing them to animals. I'm just saying.
Do you think that was meant like as like beady, like he has beady eyes, or like how? Because like I don't understand.
It was like a small piggy eyes, but the Dursleys are always being compared to like pigs or large animals or
Yeah.
And it's not here for it, even though I hate them. Honestly.
Yeah.
You can show the character of a person through their actions rather than try to shortcut it and use it as like their physical, like the description of their physical selves. Like, for instance, we had Umbridge always like a toad-like mouth or whatever, right? Or countenance. It's like, well, there are nice people who might fit that description too, and we don't want to like make them feel bad about how they look and make them think that people think that they're terrible because of the way they look, right? So, Vernon is terrible by himself. We don't need to kind of stoop that low, is what I'm thinking. That's just my opinion that maybe no one wants to hear, but that's it.
No, yeah. Totally valid.
Well, let's take us to the chocolate because I'm feeling kind of low.
Yes. My chocolate has to do with Dumbledore quietly yet calmly, quietly and calmly attempting to teach the Dumbledore. Let me just restart that over because my words are being lost. Okay. My chocolate has to do with Dumbledore quietly and calmly attempting to teach the Dursleys some damn manners. Just being like, oh, well, I guess you're not going to invite me in, so I'll come in myself. Oh, are you going to, offer me a drink? No? Okay, I'll offer you a drink. Like, just like waiting for them to be polite and just not them not doing it, and so him just being polite for them. just really, it really made me feel good. Also, I mean, just Dumbledore in general in the chapter too. Like his whole existence in this chapter is my chocolate. Like his calm and comforting demeanor, his ability to intimidate bullies by literally just like existing and doing nothing else, and then his strong love for Harry that he shows in this chapter, like I mentioned earlier, all that stuff.
I mean, that's like the best chocolate. Mine is similar. Like, obviously, Dumbledore calling the Dursleys out. Like, yes, 6 years too late, but at least it happened.
Yeah, I mean, gotta love it. Love that it happened. Wish it had happened sooner.
Love that for him.
Yes.
Speaking of things we love, you know who else we love? Our patrons.
Our patrons, yeah.
And
I didn't know if you were waiting for me to say it or not. Oops.
All right. I'll cut this out. I'll start over. And now you can respond now.
Oh, okay. I will say it this time.
Speaking of people we love, Helene, do you know who else we love?
I would want to say our patrons.
Ding, 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 ding. Correct.
Woo!
You win all the money.
Ooh.
All the money in the world. Just don't ask me for it.
All 260 some billion dollars that Jeff Bezos currently has in his bank account.
I mean, if we were ever to plan a heist, you know where we'd go. Honestly.
Oh yes.
Getting that money from Bezos. Anyhow, we want to thank our lovely patrons for making it possible for us keeping okay, I'm going to start over. We want to thank our patrons for making it possible for us to keep making this show possible and pay for our podcasting related fees. So, I mean, you know, you guys give us the money to access our Patreon content, and that money goes to Libsyn and other things that we use to record, edit, and publish this podcast. But if you'd like to join this exclusive club, you can hop on over to patreon.com/AccioPolitics and get past our paywall.
Oh, the famous paywall, the infamous paywall.
Well, it was created, I mean, this is a Harry Potter podcast, and it was created by the paywalls were famously created by
J.K.
the author of these books. So it's only fair that we have a paywall.
Yes, our paywalls are as follows. $2 a month will get you access to bonus content for every episode. And the $5 and $10 a month tiers are going to get you physical rewards every 3 months. I have pictures of what these stickers are going to look like for this upcoming delivery. And I'm thinking I might post a little sneak peek or so on social media, because you guys you should be hype for these stickers. They're really great this time.
I mean, not to brag, but there are holographic stickers this time around, you know?
Yeah, when she told me that, guys, I screamed.
Did you scream in 1998?
Yes, my little 1990 love and self was like, holographic stickers, yes.
I just feel like that's like a mood. Screams in 1998.
Yes. Yes.
The Spice Girls were big in 1998.
God, I love the Spice Girls.
We should watch the Spice Girls movie and do an episode about it.
The politics of the Spice Girls movie.
No, it's such a trip to watch it back as an adult. You have no idea.
I haven't watched it since I became an adult, so I need to.
So the last time I had watched it previous to a rewatch that I did with Alamo Drafthouse, which is like a chain of theaters here, had been when I was maybe 12 years old. and there were parts that I had just wiped clean from my memory, and I was like, this movie is bananas.
Yeah, I don't remember, and I remember there being like aliens, but other than that, I do not remember anything else
Okay,
about
so
it.
legitimately, the aliens part completely wiped from my memory until I watched it again, and I was like, what, there were aliens? How does this even fucking make sense?
Yep, I
And
do remember. Yeah,
the answer is
aliens
it
is the only
doesn't.
thing I remember. Yeah, the only thing I remember about that movie right now since I've seen it is the aliens, and I don't remember how they make it work. But I'm excited to find out whenever I decide to sit down and rewatch it.
Well,
I don't remember how we got onto the topic of the Spice Girls. All right,
sorry.
holographic
1998.
stickers.
1998.
Yes,
Anyway,
holographic stickers.
but listeners, this Patreon exclusive segment that we will have on today's episode is not about the Spice Girls. And I am so sorry for that, because that would have been amazing. But you know what? We have to keep it Harry Potter. So we will be continuing our Girl Who Lived segment, where we ponder how would the series would have, have been changed if one character or the entire cast of characters was gender flipped. How would we feel about the relationships between these characters, or even about the characters themselves? Like, maybe there's things that they do as, men that are problematic when we think of them as women or whatever, because, the patriarchy. That's kind of basically the sneak peek, because for every Girl Who Lived segment.
Yeah.
This time we are going to be tackling Cho Chang.
Oh yeah, so excited. I have to figure out what name we're gonna call her. I haven't done that yet.
I've already done that for you, girl.
Oh well, thank you, thank you.
It was hard though. It was hard, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, last week we asked our listeners a question, like we do every single week, and we asked listeners, do you think Snape hated Sirius enough to want him dead? Or was he just, playing the part in front of Bellatrix? Like, it's just performance art.
Yeah, we got a lot of great answers this week. I'll read a couple of them. So, listener and patron and friend of the pod, Rex, said, I think Snape wanted Sirius to be maimed or seriously injured, but not dead. Never dead, he says. I don't know if I believe with that. I don't know if I agree with that. But,
maybe, I feel like what Rex is getting at without saying is like, he wanted to see him suffer, and so if he's dead, he can't see him suffer.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just putting words in Rex's mouth.
No, I mean, that makes a little bit more sense to me, like the way you worded it, and I'm pretty sure that's probably what Rex meant too, so yeah. And then, we had a variety of different thoughts and opinions on this matter from our listeners.
This is a hot question.
Yeah, so Scurvy42 on Instagram said, the episode is in the queue, so they hadn't listened to the episode yet, but for sure Snape hated him enough. He never let go of his childhood, quote-unquote, love for Lily. Why would he let go of the intense hatred for Sirius? Good question. Snape knows how to hold a grudge.
I have to agree. I have to agree with Scurvy42, because if there is one thing that Severus Snape never learned, was to let go of the things that were no longer serving him.
Yeah, I mean, if holding a grudge was an Olympic sport, like, Severus would take home
all the medals.
Yeah.
All the medals.
Yes. Another listener...
With like me on like a silver medal right next to Snape.
Okay. All right.
I do love a grudge.
Well, Lopez.Desiree M on Instagram, they said, I think it's complicated. Snape could have hated Sirius and not mourned his death, but still not agreed with the brutality of the Death Eaters.
Fair.
Kind of more on like Rex's line of thinking.
Do you think we'll feel that way about Trump when he succumbs, to his last cheeseburger?
that we like hated him and won't mourn his death, but we didn't want him to die.
Yeah, like if it's like a tragic accident or like, I don't know.
I mean, I think that's probably, I mean, that's just kind of like how my father kind of raised me to be, is like never celebrate a death. Like there are people in the world who like cared about that person. And if you can't have empathy for like that person, try to have empathy for like those people in their life that cared about them, no matter how flawed of a human being they were.
Your father is very wise.
It's hard a lot of the time. Like I have a lot of empathy. Like I'm a very empathetic person in general, but it is hard when, you know, we're talking about people the level of like Trump, you know, like I had thought about this when I thought Trump was going to die of COVID, you know, like I thought, like, would I be sad? I don't think so. I mean, like, it's hard. Like, I don't think I'd be particularly sad, but I also wouldn't be, I mean, I wouldn't be sad, but I also don't think I'd be happy either because of the empathy that I try to have for those people.
All right. Okay. Fair.
I might be more indifferent than happy, I guess.
I mean, I may be happy if he succumbs before 2024, but that's, you know, just between
I mean,
you,
more
me,
maybe relieved.
and our listeners.
Maybe more relieved. I don't know about happy, but relieved.
Well,
In a
you know
way.
what? You're right. It's not happiness. It's relief.
Yeah. I don't know if I could ever actually be happy about, you know, someone dying, but that's just me.
Well, you are my moral center as always.
I mean, yeah, it's not, I mean, there are definitely people like Hitler dying, probably for the best. But like, there's like, it's a whole spectrum. We're not, it's too much to get into.
All
right,
right, let's continue. I'm sorry. I am sorry to derail our podcast with existential questions.
Like, I could probably sit and think and talk about this for a little bit, but we don't have the time. So just a couple more responses I wanted to share. So Rock Climbing Girl 23 on Instagram, they said, I believe that Snape never forgot what the Marauders did, and he never forgave them for it. Snape didn't grow out of being a bully. James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter did.
Questionable if Peter ever did, but cool.
Yeah, I mean, I for the most part I agree with this. I'm not sure if I would personally go as far as to say that James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter all grew out of being a bully. Like, I think that they all I don't know about Peter, but like James, I don't know if he really fully lived long enough to fully grow out of it. But like Sirius and Remus, like they became adults. Like they still had their own they still in their adulthood held on to like some childish resentment or hatred.
Sirius more than Remus, obviously.
Yeah. But like I don't think that they like particularly were bullies in their adulthood. Snape was and is a bully still. So yeah, I agree with the fact that Snape never grew out of being a bully. I don't know about the others, but yeah, speaking of bullying, our patron Angelina said yes, she believes that Snape hated Sirius enough to want him dead because he was bullied so much, which is one thing I think made him so angry all the time. So,
I mean, again, Snape does not know how to let go of what no longer serves him. He is feeding the wrong wolf, you know? That story about the two wolves that live inside you.
You don't know. I might have. That sounds vaguely familiar.
Like the good wolf, you know, inside all of us lives a good wolf and a bad wolf, and like, you know, kind of like you become the one you feed type thing. Like resentment, anger, guilt, all of these emotions feed the bad wolf, and like gratitude and friendship and love feed the good wolf. So basically, like the one thing you focus on determines, you know, not just your outlook on life, but who you are in life.
And how you treat other people. Yeah.
Exactly. Correct.
Makes sense. So thank you guys so much. Those were really awesome answers. I really loved seeing and hearing your guys' perspectives on that. I thought it was a good discussion topic for sure.
All right, so for this week's question, it's a question that Helene and I kind of floated around the entire episode, and we kind of touched on it, and then we kind of sauntered away because there were other things that we needed to talk about, but we want to hear your opinions. Do you think Dumbledore should have intervened on Harry's behalf in the Dursley household before this book? Why or why not? And that's going to be posted in all our socials, but you can also email us at info@acciopolitics or acciopolitics@gmail.com with your answer. You can also call 915-996-1699 and leave us a voicemail, and maybe we'll play it on the show.
Yes, definitely. I can't wait to hear from you guys. But
all right, it's time for our cool down. Let's
yes.
stretch. We've flexed our politics muscles. It's time for us to stretch.
Yes.
And cool down.
Before I reveal the media that I chose this week, I want to just tease a little bit. This will be what I use for my plug, I guess. I want to tease a little bit to the listeners that we are cooking up something really exciting and special this weekend with another nice and really fun Harry Potter podcast that you might have heard of called Swish and Flick Podcast.
I mean, if you haven't heard about Swish and Flick, I got questions.
Yes, they are awesome. I've been an avid listener. Yes, I almost said reader. I have been an avid listener and fan of Swish and Flick since probably like 2016. And I love their podcast. I love those hosts. It's Katie, Megan, Tiffany, and Sarah, and they're so fun and so genuine, and I cannot wait to collaborate with them. So we're going to be doing that this weekend. We're going to be, recording a little bit of stuff with them. Not exactly sure when those are going to be released yet, but as soon as we know, we'll let you know. And just keep an eye out. I'm excited. I don't know about you, Adri, but I've been wanting to record with these girls for quite a long time.
I am psyched. I already told Seth I cannot watch 90 Day Fiancé with you on Sunday night because I have a very important recording sesh. Okay?
Yes.
And he was like, okay.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard of them, go give them a listen. You're really going to enjoy their podcast. They are super funny and insightful and passionate and everything you could want in a Potter podcast.
And Helene, I don't know if you knew this, but fun fact, Swish and Flick and Accio Politics actually launched on the same day.
Honestly, I actually had an inkling. I didn't know for sure, but I thought that might have been the case, or at least around them, because we are literally at the same exact point in our reread as they are.
So it was July 20 whatever. 20 I think it was July 2017 we both launched. July 31st. It was a Monday. It was Harry's birthday, and we launched episode 1 the same day.
I'm excited to collab.
So excited. We're podcast twins, how could we not?
But anyway, so there's that. But then the media I've been consuming super quickly. It's just
I just saw it. I just saw this in the doc, and I just my eyes went wide.
I think I probably mentioned it back when I first heard about this show, about how I was excited to watch this. Maybe I didn't. It's a Netflix show. It's a blind date, one of their new blind dating shows. They have Love is Blind and Too Hot to Handle and stuff like that. This one is a new show that they just launched called Sexy Beasts. Which, the minute I saw the trailer for this, a month ago, I was like, I cannot wait to watch this. It is, they put people, they put these people in like full on like
Is it furries?
cosmetic. It's not always animals, but sort of. Yeah, like they put them in like full prosthetic makeup. Like look it up. They have people like dressed up as like aliens and zombies, but also like devils and pandas and beavers and like, and so like you literally cannot tell anything about their face. And these people that are dressed in just ridiculous, insane prosthetic makeup go on blind dates, and it's to try and see if like they get along personality wise. And then at the end, so it's like one person dates 3 other people all in prosthetic makeup, and they kind of decide which one they think they have a stronger connection with and slowly eliminate them until there's just one left. And then at the end they all get to see what each other looked like.
I mean, who comes up with this shit?
I'm looking at Adri's face as she's like looking at the pictures. Guys, look it up. Netflix, Sexy Beasts is what it's called. Sexy Beasts. It is very interesting. I would say, like, I liked it.
This is like, I'm still agog. This is like if that that special effects makeup show had a baby with,
I think it's called Face Off.
With like Love is Blind and also Love Island?
Yeah, it's like Face Off and Love is Blind put together, basically. It wasn't my favorite ever blind dating show. Like the way that it was set up, like it's kind of awkward, and like also them trying to kiss in their prosthetic makeup is very strange. Like a lot of the times it just like doesn't work out logistically. But I would watch it. I would suggest watching it just so you can see these people dressed in these ridiculous costumes. It's so funny.
I'm sorry. I am still so blown away by these pictures.
Just watch when we're done recording, you have to watch the trailer.
I'm sorry, but like there's like one that is dressed like a dolphin head.
Yep.
Like a dolphin is the entire head, and this is going to give me nightmares. You know what I want? I want an oral history of how this pitch meeting went, because I cannot imagine being the person pitching this. Like, okay, so dating shows, they're super hot right now. You know what else is super hot right now? Competition shows that display artistic talent. What if we blended those two?
It's actually, like I think the trailer called it like a mix of The Masked Singer and Love is Blind.
This is no Masked Singer. This is not, no. No.
The only gripe I have with it is that the prosthetic makeup like hides their face and sometimes their skin color, so that you don't know what ethnicity they are. But
Singer more like costume, fan costume type thing.
It's like a full, I mean, they are kind of similarly. They literally have like, most. So the thing I was going to say is my biggest gripe was that while the makeup covers up like their face and their ethnicity most of the time, it doesn't usually accommodate for their body. So a lot of the times the people are still making...
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the people are still making decisions based on whether or not they like the person's body, which I think would be better if like all of that was taken out of the equation, and you could, if you have a connection with someone and you don't know what their body size is, like that I think would be more interesting to me.
Helene, I have a pitch for the Netflix executives. I really do. I'd be like, you know what's hot? Dating shows. You know what it's also hot? Overalls. Let's make everyone wear Dickies overalls and have mechanic name tags and see who gets a date after that.
Okay.
Because it's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, this is fucking ridiculous. At least great. Love is Blind, I could still, like, see the promise of the premise,
Yeah.
But this is just like, okay, you know what? Netflix needs to stop. Someone, I feel like I will thoroughly enjoy watching this because you know how I love trash. This is not me, I am trash talking, but you know what I mean. Like there are better stuff out there, I'm sure, that didn't get greenlit, and this did. Oh, I'm sorry. Like this show what was the show that got canceled on Netflix that I really liked? Oh, One Day at a Time got canceled and this got greenlit?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and that had like representation of like non-binary people, like, you know, Cuban populations. I don't know, like it had like a really good grasp on addiction and recovery. It had like all these, you know, really great things without being too preachy about it. Had queer representation, like one of the characters, you know, is a lesbian, like all of these things. But no, you greenlit this shit. Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's Netflix for you. It's media for you these days, honestly.
And then I'm going to continue perpetuating the cycle by watching this, because why not? Why would I not watch this piece of trash? I love trash. I am part of the problem, never the solution.
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, that was my
I'm sorry, this was very controversial. I did not expect this segment to be this long. All right, I'm going to keep it short. Tig Notaro has a new special on HBO. It's called Drawn. It's really funny. Okay. Everything is drawn as in like it's like a cartoon.
Okay.
Like, and each one of her, like, you know, jokes or stories, because she's more of a storyteller, is drawn in a different style. So it kind of looks, it's just very visually pleasing to me, I thought, as someone who thinks that they could one day draw like that. And also the comedy is, as always, top notch. So HBO Max, Tig Notaro, Drawn. All right, that is it for today's episode. I promise I will try to not talk more about about dating shows that have gotten a little too out of hand. So please join us next week as we cover Chapter 4 of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This one is titled Horace Slughorn.
Yes, I'm excited for this. God, gotta love old I almost said old Sloris. Gotta love old Horace.
Sloris could name. Be the new... Sloris could be like what we call him from now on.
Yeah, Sloris. What a name! What a name. But in the meantime, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to just be listening to us right now. It helps new listeners discover the podcast, and we would just really enjoy it. So please, thank you.
Like Tinkerbell, if you don't clap for us, we feel like we're dying. So until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/AccioPolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at acciopolitics.com, and we are at AccioPolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@acciopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699, and you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Accio Politics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.